Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls and bottom line the information for you. Today is April 20th. We're nearing the end of the month. There's a lot going on, so I'm a little bit on the fly with this call. As we speak, things are happening. I'm going to be touching on them. There are things going on globally and both globally and in country in Iraq. They're all going on simultaneously. It's a little bit complicated. I'm going to try to cut through some of the confusion and bottom line the information for you. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be relevant. And, of course, the most relevant piece of information would be the window for the potential reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar. At this point, that could happen at any time. But, again, there's a lot going on. And so I'm going to touch on the situation both globally and in terms of what's going on in country in Iraq. Now, globally, the most important piece of information would be a meeting taking place between the United States Treasury, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. It's unusual for these three to meet and publicly disclose their meeting. They're probably discussing, in my opinion, the transition from fiat-based to Basel III compliant currencies globally, which is a good thing. They're probably talking about the creation of a one-world digital currency, which from our perspective is not a good thing. But both of these issues do impact Iraq. As a matter of fact, the IMF did release a statement saying that in order for the IMF to take the dinar out of the program rate, the government of Iraq had to establish financial stability, and one of the major criteria was, since they're under a program rate, is that they had about 45 million in reserve currency, gold, and primarily that's the issue, the currencies and the gold. Right now, the estimate is that Iraq has between $70 and $100 million in reserve. They need about $60 million to run the country for an entire year. So from the standpoint of the International Monetary Fund and particularly the IMF, Iraq at this point is defined as a stable country. However, there are some complications in country that people are watching. The various political/sectarian blocs within the parliament do seem to be coming together. But thus far, they have not seated a new government, nor have they passed the 2022 budget. There is a session scheduled for next week to deal with both of these issues. Now, there is an interim caretaker government in place at present, and it's actually got some people in it that I would like to see in the new government. Salih is the president of the Republic. Kademi is the caretaker prime minister, and al-Habousi is the speaker of the House. And these three individuals are wanting the country to move in the right direction. So there is sort of a stalemate or an impasse. There are two schools of thought here. One is that this caretaker government could proceed to get everything done, i.e. passing the budget and seating a new government, in lieu of seating a new government, could run the country in all respects. However, there are those that say no, technically, constitutionally, the caretaker government cannot okay a change in the exchange rate or pass the budget. But here's the problem for the naysayers. The people that say we cannot move forward without the new government, they can't do anything, are the people that have violated the Constitution by refusing within the Parliament to come to a compromise and seat the government and pass the budget. So they would basically be going to the courts, and there's something in the law called clean hands. In other words, you can't go into a court and argue that Party A hasn't done something when you, Party B, haven't done what you're supposed to do either. So it's entirely possible, although technically not constitutional, for a caretaker government to preside over the passage of the budget and a change in the exchange rate. The other issue is this: whether a new government is seated or not, constitutionally, the CBI, the Central Bank of Iraq, does have the authority unilaterally to change the exchange rate. So as complicated and convoluted as it is, either we're going to see a change in the exchange rate, that is to reinstitute the currency in country either now or certainly very shortly thereafter, because if the Parliament fails to seat a new government next week and fails to pass the budget, it's entirely possible that the CBI is just going to go ahead and change the exchange rate unilaterally, and once again be very difficult, would be an extreme uphill climb for the people who are trying to stop it, who are also the people that refuse to compromise in Parliament, are going to prevail in the courts. So taking the situation as it exists, there's every reason to believe that the exchange rate could literally change at any time. Of course, that's very good news. Now, that being the case, I'd like to talk a little bit about the program that Trusts Unlimited has put in place for those of you that have currencies. It's been over a decade now since Trusts Unlimited has put together a turnkey program to assist individuals. When we decided to put this program together, it was because we knew that the vast majority of dinarians, people holding dinar, and some of the other pre-valued currencies, are just regular, hard-working folks who, for the first time in their life, will be faced with the daunting task of managing literally an overnight fortune. And so we've put together what we believe is the best possible program to assist you. We've created a package of irrevocable trusts, and I'm going to explain to you in detail, both pre- and post-RV, why this package is going to provide all of the protections and safeguards that you're going to want. But over the last few months, it's become clear to me that even if you are not the holder of the dinar and other currencies, because of the increasing intrusion into our lives with the growing surveillance state and with a federal government that's evidenced their authoritarian proclivities, it's important that we exercise whatever constitutional rights allow us to protect ourselves from this intrusion. Now, there are other vehicles, entities that exist that can provide some level of asset protection. I'm going to touch on them briefly, and then once again, I'm going to explain why the program we've put in place is far superior to them. For example, individuals can establish LLCs and sub-S corporations, and they do provide some level of asset protection, but primarily by dividing personal assets from business assets. The problem here is twofold. Number one, the possession of these currencies is a personal asset. And second, courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by one person or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So they're not going to be appropriate vehicles. Some individuals have established something called a revocable trust, sometimes referred to as a living or loving trust. These trusts have been designed primarily to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate, and if properly structured, in some cases can substantially reduce or even eliminate the federal estate tax. But the irrevocable or the living or loving trust can provide no privacy or asset protection. So once again, they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. What we have established is a package of irrevocable trusts. Now, the LLC, the sub-S corporation, the revocable trust, all these entities are statutory entities, meaning they're regulated on a state-by-state basis, means that the state's going to be well aware of what you're doing. They also require annual fees. Our package not only is not under any state requirement, you're not obligated to report the existence of this trust to anyone. The assets within the trust are sealed, meaning the general public will have no knowledge of what's actually in the trust. There are no annual fees that need to be paid. You are exercising your Fourth Amendment right to privacy in your personal affairs and papers. So the difference between the trust package I'm going to discuss with you here and all of the other entities that I just mentioned is that under the law, it's none of their damn business whether or not you have established a trust or what you've placed in that trust. And that's the difference. Now, for those of you that are not holders of currencies, and for the reasons I stated, the increased intrusion of the government into our personal affairs, the establishment of a trust package like this is a very good idea. For those of you that have dinar and some of these other currencies, not only is it incumbent upon you to establish a trust package like this, but the package would need to be established prior to the reinstitution and revaluation of these currencies. And I'm going to explain to you the reasons why. First, by establishing this trust package, you're going to preserve your privacy and your anonymity. And that's going to be exceedingly important to you after you've acquired this wealth, because you're obviously not going to want people to know that you've acquired this amount of wealth. Well, this trust package is sealed, meaning the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you're going to be able to avoid personal IRS scrutiny. Now, what do I mean by that? If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you very well may be looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along at the precise time that these currencies have revalued, and the last thing you're going to want to be doing is dealing with the IRS right after this revaluation. And third, the cost of a 6-year audit would probably be more than the cost of our asset protection trust. On the other hand, if your pre-RV asset protection trust package is in place and you have assigned your currencies to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for two reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an audit of this trust if the revaluation were to occur within a sophisticated trust package such as this. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust would be the revaluation itself. And pursuant to Section 988E2 and Section 643A and B of the Internal Revenue Code, the revaluation of this within our trust very well may be tax deferred, meaning no tax would be due upon the revaluation. Now, when the dinar reinstitutes, we're going to need to go to the IRS and the Treasury Department to have them confirm in writing what these sections of the code say, but these sections of the code do indicate that the currency, the profit is capital gain, and capital gains are tax deferred within an irrevocable trust. So we may have tax deferral as well. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currency to family and friends. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to give currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you've negotiated the exchange, that can be done outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, our trust package has a specially designed gift subtrust, meaning you can gift the currencies to these individuals on a pre-RV basis through this gift subtrust. And because you're gifting to them through this subtrust, their privacy, their asset protection on this revaluation will be protected along with yours. In addition, again, because you've gifted through this gift subtrust, you will be able to personally manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases, even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to your heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass the federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number two. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does this mean in simple terms? It means that under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an irrevocable entity like our trust package. So how would that work? Well, let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currency at the time you transferred it out of title and to our trust package, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy referred to as segregation of assets. This is why we have created a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. Again, we'll use the same example. You purchased 5 million dinar for $5,000, transferred the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalued for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, how does this protect you from future bad acts? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. Now, in that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other segregated subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident in question, meaning that the plaintiff would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity. So this trust provides protection for you pre-RV by protecting those currencies, and post-RV by protecting the post-RV wealth. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trusts prior to the revaluation of these currencies. We refer to this as Phase 1 of our turnkey asset protection program. Phase 2 is post-RV, meaning all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation and after your acquisition of this wealth. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2 of our turnkey program, which, again, is all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you. I'll just make mention of one here. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held, hopefully, in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar. Now, present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages. Many of our clients have also expressed a desire after this revaluation to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is with the transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there as well. With this newfound wealth, you're going to want to take advantage of all of the more sophisticated tax strategies to legally reduce your tax exposure. We will also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets as soon as possible in order to protect this newfound wealth for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant currencies is going to create volatility and inflation, and so you're going to want to transition a substantial amount of your wealth to tangible assets in order to avoid that volatility. Lastly, if the international community is successful in creating digital currencies, you have lost complete control of the amount of money that you do hold in currencies, which is, again, another reason to transition to tangible assets. And by that, I mean gold, silver, industrial metals, cryptos, real estate investment trusts, direct and real estate investments, all of the above. And these are the things that we hopefully can assist you with or give you some direction after the revaluation of the dinar and some of these other currencies. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your pre-RV currencies prior to the revaluation, financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts after the revaluation of these currencies, and has the ability to manage the other sub-trusts. Our optional gift sub-trust, if you want to gift currencies to friends and family and manage those post-RV proceeds after the revaluation, and 8 additional sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. In addition, you can add sub-trusts beyond the 8 original if you wish to do so. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. Some of the offshore trusts can cost as much as $25,000. But when we decided to work with Dinarians, we understood that these price tags were going to be unaffordable for too many. So by simplifying the trust package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. In addition, there are a number of ways you can pay for that. Pay us up front. We'll discount the price further to $2,500, which would save you $500. We even have a deferred payment arrangement, meaning that you could pay us an initial $525, which would basically offset our upfront cost just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, the reason we established the deferred payment plan, and that's pretty much unheard of in the industry, is this way anyone that has currencies and understands the need for establishing their trust pre-RV and getting their affairs in order pre-RV should be able to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be less than the $100 a month you'd be paying under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation in the dinar and these other currencies for all of the reasons that I've stated here. Now, we will be going to a Q&A in just a moment, but before we do, and before I give you the information to contact us, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you should seriously consider at the very least contacting us to get our initial no-obligation package. This trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 39 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have about 80 years' experience in this very niche area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for about 10 years, primarily working with the dinarians and doing estate planning work. And it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. However, under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And it's invariably at those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are business losses, investment losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, under our system of civil procedure, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial appreciation in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV. I'm going to go to the Q&A in just a moment. When I do, I suggest you have a pen and paper handy because I will give you our contact information. So let me go to the Q&A here. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trustswithansunlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trustswithansunlimitedllc@gmail.com. and our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you contact us, we'll be happy to send you our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need should you decide to apply for one of our trusts, but you're under absolutely no obligation to do so. The package has a lot of information about us, about the revaluation, about these trusts. In addition, you can contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. So let's go to our callers here. Our first caller is, let me see here. Our first caller is area code. Let's see, I'm having trouble here getting a hold of going up on this call here. Just 1 second. 801, are you on? 801, are you there? Hello?
Jim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Who is this?
This is Clay.
Oh, yes, Clay. Okay. Okay, Clay.
How are you?
I wasn't going through, but I'm glad we got through. What's up, my friend?
That's okay. That's all right. Listen, quick question. Do you not think that the last thing to do with this process is the formation of the government? If you think about it, they can't start those reforms with a caretaker government. I guess it's in their constitution. But once they formulate the government, then they can start the reforms. And in my opinion, it's going to take dollars, reinstatement or revaluation, in order to do that, because they have to go international in order to start the reforms. It also appears that they're probably going to put back Kadimi and also Barham Salah. I think if that happens, it's pretty much a slam dunk. But they can't send the budget to Parliament until they have a formed government. So what's the holdup? What's taking these guys so long to get that done?
Okay. In my opinion, there's a couple of things. First of all, they're in the minority, but there are still people in Iraq that don't want to get it done. Those are largely the Shia, who are very sympathetic to Iran, and frankly, their sectarian loyalties seem to exceed their loyalty for the creation of a modern sovereign nation state. In addition, it's also the same Shia that have been pilfering the country, and the creation of a new government, and when all of these things get done, then the government's going to turn to all of the corruption that's taken place over the last 15 or 20 years. So those individuals are not particularly in a hurry to get that done. And, of course, if they should get voted out, then they've lost their immunity. So these are all reasons that they're holding it up. However, if they are intransigent, they will violate the Constitution by not forming a new government within the constitutional time frame and guidelines. So it's going to be very difficult for them to go to the courts and say, well, the caretaker government can't do all this other stuff. We're stuck because we violated the Constitution legislatively. So that's why I said it's complicated, it's convoluted. And lastly, once again, the CBI is intact. The CBI can change the exchange rate. The argument that they have to pass the budget before they change the exchange rate, in my view, I would argue I would prefer that they change the exchange rate before they pass the budget, because they're going to pass the budget with their currency in a program rate, which means they'd have to readjust in order to accommodate the exchange rate. So it's very convoluted. We have a parliamentary system. We have a parliamentary system that they've made very complicated. Then you lay on top of that all the tribal and sectarian infighting that's going on. So, in my view, I'm hoping that someone's going to say, the Constitution's been violated by everyone. Change the damn rate, and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
That's where I feel we are right now.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
That may be wishful thinking, but when you think about it, how can they go to the courts and complain about the unconstitutional actions of a caretaker government when they're the ones that violated the Constitution by not seating a new government? These are also the same people. Remember that said that the elections were fraudulent, and they got kicked to the curb on that one too. It's the same people.
You think they're going to get away with it, Jim?
I hope not. I hope that, well, now that the international community is really revving their engines and they want to get this done, that's another reason for the intransigent people to get kicked to the curb, finally.
Well, this is what's going to happen. If they don't formulate that government and pass these reforms, they're going to have a revolt from the people within Iraq.
Right.
Which, if the Shia want to support that, that's what's going to happen.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I said in my earlier call that perhaps they thought Sadr had kind of relented when I said, no, maybe he's being Machiavellian here. He gave them the hot potato, and he gave them a time frame to get it done. If they don't get it done, it's all on them. Then it reverts back to the Sadrists. Then the coalition framework has lost all their juice, and Sadr's back in control.
It makes sense. Okay. All right, I guess we'll see what happens. When does that 40 days end? Do you have any idea?
I guess in about a month.
Okay. All right, thanks, Jim.
Okay?
What's that again, sir?
It should end at the end of May.
By the end of May. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we'll see.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for your time.
Okay. Sure. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller, I believe this is area code 978. That 978. Go ahead.
Great risings, Jim. How are you? This is Al from San Francisco.
Yes, sir.
How are you? It's been a many years, and pleasant to be back in your comfortable air and abilities to bring stability and growth. Thank you so much.
Is this Al the Cowboy?
Yeah, Black Cowboy Al. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. How awesome. It's good to say hello. I actually have a trust packet as well. Helped or was part of a few others achieving stability and protections through you. And most humble am I in being enlightened as well as protected for generational growth. Thank you so much for all you do. I have a question. So, like, when this does appear or happens or formulates into an event, us as holders, when this takes place, I'm for sure your thought pattern is don't run to the redemption center or whatever. Whatever you want to call it. It would be to wait until we get notification or what have you through your abilities to help guide us into securing our wealth and protecting it in a most prestigious way, which, again, I am grateful. My question is, the ZIM currency, it's not a currency, it's actually a bond. I'm not familiar with what, I mean, the currencies, of course, we're waiting for the Forex. Once the Forex shows, that's our key to do whatever or movement. But the bond is actually a different beast. It's not a currency. It's on bond paper, so the value of the bond is guaranteed. It's almost like a birth certificate. My question is, do you see any potential for us to take part in the bond shift through the trust, and how would...
Yeah. Let me answer this. Okay. The ZIM is a different creature now. I hold a number of currencies, and I do have ZIM. We've been told a lot of things, and I take note of what we're being told, but I do so with the belief that no one really knows when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. There is a lot of talk that the potential leverage with the ZIM, and remember, the only difference is with the currency, you would exchange it at a different rate. If it's a bond, they're just paying you off on the bond. But the potential leverage with the ZIM, you're hearing things like, well, you're not going to get a lump sum up front. They're going to annuitize it, and the annuity may run for 100 years. Who knows? But if you do the math, or if you have a 100 trillion note, and I'm just making up a number, and it came back even at 10 cents, I mean, if you do the math on that, it's a ridiculous amount. So while I hold ZIM, that's the one currency that of all of the currencies I hold, I expect would, if I had to believe one of them is not going to produce, it's probably going to be that one, certainly not with that amount of leverage. But when in our view, the dinar will go first. It'll reinstitute in country, although who knows? It could be an outlier. It could reinstitute and revalue simultaneously, or it could revalue within a matter of days. But once the currency reinstitutes, then I will have something for us to go to the bank and say, look, now the dinar has reinstituted in country. Now the dinar is a functional currency. We have a large number of clients that are holders of this currency. Can we negotiate, for those that walk into your bank with our trust, can we negotiate a reduction in the in the transaction fees? Can we get the best street rate? And that's how we'll proceed. Now, I know individuals are going to run to the bank with their hair on fire the day this thing happens, and so they're going to get whatever deal they're going to get. But hopefully there'll be, at minimum, a 10-day delay between the reinstitution and the revaluation, which will give us time to try to work something out. But like I said, we're completely on the fly, and we're just going to have to wait and see how this plays out.
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, it brought me enlightenment. Again, you always do. And I'm glad to be back. I went through a lot of studies, so I've been away. I'm hopeful to be back. This will show up as this area code number, but you know me, I'm in 415. I appreciate you. Much appreciation. I did have another question, but I know others are waiting in line. I really appreciate you. I'll just either get back in line or speak with you next week.
Let me make you a suggestion. Send us an email with your other question, and also ask for our exchange protocol. We have a not new, but it's probably you don't have it. It's the exchange protocol if you have a trust, and it walks through the exchange process if you have a trust versus just walking in without a trust. So if you would drop us a quick email, trusts with an S, unlimited, LLC@gmail.com. I'll fire that stuff off to you and give you that information, okay?
Awesome, like a possum, and thank you very much.
Sure. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Ciao.
Okay, our next caller is area code 978. That's 978. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. My name is Leslie, and first of all, I appreciate all the valuable information that you share with us. I'm wondering, does Trust Unlimited have connections on the ground in Iraq that are providing information that, to help us interpret what's going on?
Well, I have individuals in a number of places, including Iraq, that I call to get their opinion, get any new information. Most of the time, they're in general agreement about what's going on. Right now, they're a little bit befuddled how they're going to proceed because the process of how they're going to get through this, how they're going to pass the budget, how they're going to seat the new government, can the CBI work with the caretaker government? there's a little bit of confusion in the country how that's all going to play out. But as I've said, I really don't see how anyone's going to hamstring the caretaker government from the legislative body if the legislative body is already in violation of the Constitution by not seating a new government. And inasmuch as the CBI can change the exchange rate unilaterally, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but in my opinion, to me it doesn't matter whether there's a caretaker government or the new government if the CBI has the ability to unilaterally change the exchange rate. So we're just going to have to see how this plays out. But again, there's supposed to be a parliamentary session within a week to deal with both the budget and the new government. So, maybe finally we're at the end of the line here, and they're going to do what they need to do so that we can move forward and get the exchange rate where it belongs, which is certainly north of $3 and probably closer to $4.
Very good. I appreciate the information. Thank you.
Sure. Well, that's our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to excuse me, I'm sorry. They have a new format on here. They keep changing it on me, and I'm no good with this thing. But again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. If the things we've discussed are interesting and important to you, whether you have currencies or not, given the current situation in this country, it's funny, we talk about the confusion and the dysfunction in Iraq, but we have every bit as much going on in this country. Where I stand on all of that. But if you'll contact us, we'll be happy to send you our initial no-obligation package. This trust works very well for anyone, whether you have currencies or not. You can contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you in any way. There will be no consultation fee. We will be back, of course, next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.